Hello, I'm Dr. Tiffany Bone, ex officio board member for Arkansas ASCD, and we are proud to present the last video in our 4-part video series, The Power to Survive. I hope you enjoyed last month's segment on serving our virtual families. This month, our 4th conversation is entitled, Best Practices in a COVID World. Please join this fabulous group of Central Arkansas educators as they share with us some of the tips and strategies they use for engaging teaching and learning. Arkansas teachers, we see what you're doing out there. We are proud of you, and we want you to know that your best is more than enough. Stay safe and enjoy this series.
My name is Terrence Underwood. I'm a teacher at Jacksonville Middle School, and I teach survey of business for the 8th grade.
I'm Beth Young. I've taught for 3 years, and this year I get to teach 3rd grade virtually at Jacksonville North Pulaski Virtual Academy.
Hi, my name's Tanner Rupel. I teach at Jacksonville Middle School. I've been teaching for the Jacksonville North Pulaski School District for 4 years now.
My name is Raven Smith. I'm an elementary virtual teacher. I've been teaching at Jacksonville North Pulaski for 2 years now, and this is my first year as a virtual teacher.
My name is Tiffany Harper. I have been at Jacksonville since 2016. Before that, I had a couple years teaching experience, so I'm going into year 8 now. I've taught English, family and consumer science, and currently I'm teaching oral communications, journalism, and creative writing.
I'm Samantha Ducher. I'm the Instructional Technology Coordinator for Jacksonville North Pulaski School District. My job is essentially to teach our teachers the best innovative practices within educational technology.
What are some best practices that you can share with other educators that you have implemented in your virtual classroom?
So some best practices that I can share to other educators is number one is have an open door policy. And that's not only for scholars but for parents as well. And that goes back to the communication and being able to communicate with your parents and scholars no matter what. No matter if it's involving education or anything outside of school, being able to communicate and listen to your scholars and your parents is going to be a key to success for them. Another key practice that I find in my math classroom is being able to find resources that are going to grade the assignments for me. A lot of teachers say they spend a lot of time grading, and if we find those vital resources that's going to do it for you, it's going to help out in the long run. And so some examples of those that I use are things like Edge Elastic, Khan Academy, Moby Max, and then the fun games they like Quizzes and Kahoot.
There are actually 3 best practices that I've implemented within my classroom. One is, first of all, showing the scholar that you care about them, showing that you care about what actually happens within their life as well as their learning. Number 2 is showing the scholar or making the content connecting and engaging. And the third one is communicating clearly to the scholar what the expectations are in the classroom.
I think best practices for the virtual classroom are very similar to in-person learning. So number 1 being high expectations for all learners, whether that's academically, behaviorally, high expectations across the board. Number 2, just being those student relationships. They're so important, and even more important now that you're not in the same room, letting them know they're valued and heard. And then just number 3, being adaptive to student needs creatively. So those small groups, those interventions, they're going to look different, and so just being flexible.
Some best practices I've implemented in my virtual classroom are the student norms and student expectations. Some student norms that I've implemented is students coming in on the lives on mute. And then some good student expectations are to have all materials ready to go beside them so that class can go as seamless as possible.
So for best practices that I've implemented in my classroom virtually, they may seem kind of obvious, but one of the best piece of advice I can give you is to really step outside your comfort zone. Now, I know that this entire year is outside of everyone's comfort zone, but don't be afraid to try new things. Like if you're interested in new technology and you don't understand it, go to the teacher next door, go to the teacher down the hallway, email someone you've been to PD with, get something new, get something fresh. It's okay if it fails because that's going to teach you a lesson of what you need to work on, and it's also a good example for these kids to see a professional fail and learn from it and do better the next time. Something else just kind of ties back to that is just be resourceful. We have the internet at our fingertips, and like we're really getting into this technology, we're really getting into the virtual world, so it's really important to use those resources that you have. Grow your personal learning network, your PLN, follow teacher blogs, do whatever you need to do to find fresh new ideas to try to make this engaging as possible, even when we can't physically be together.
What is the key to making your LMS, your learning management system, student and family friendly?
I think the key to making your LMS student and family friendly is organization. So being organized and being concise the same way you would with procedures in your classroom every day. That's going to let students and family members navigate it easily and know exactly what's expected each day, just as they would each period and each part as they would move throughout a class period.
LMS, to make that student and family friendly, is one of your highest priorities as a virtual teacher, because if they're not able to use it effectively, then you're not able to do your job. So one way to make it student and family friendly is the less clicks, the better. It kind of has to be your motto. And one way you can do that is by thinking about, instead of overwhelming them, give a procedure, give a step. This is always where it's going to be. This is always where you can find it. Make tutorials, make videos to help students and parents, no matter the time of year they need that.
So here at Jacksonville High School, our LMS is Google Classroom, and it was kind of overwhelming when we did AMI days because the stream, like the main stream, kind of works like a Facebook page. Anything that gets posted all gets put in that page. And so we had parents complaining that it was a little overwhelming. So the most important thing I can do to make it family friendly is to make it organized. So what I like to do, instead of putting everything on the stream, I like to really utilize that classwork tab. So I will divide it up. Here at Jacksonville, we do like current work, so what we're currently working on for the unit. The next unit is going to be past work, so things that we've already completed but we're still accepting for late credit. And then the last one is work that we're no longer accepting, but they still have access to it. That way, if they need to review it for a test, for whether it's a 9 weeks test, a unit test, or a semester exam, they have access to that. Something else that I found really helpful with organization is on the home page, making sure my contact info is right at the very top. My office hours are right at the very top, including my virtual office hours. And then I put a calendar on there that has like a link to a video of that lesson and then whatever the assignment was for that specific day. So say that you were absent November 16th, you can click on November 16th and it takes you right to that day's assignment. And that makes it really easy for kids to catch up and for parents to understand what's going on too.
The key to making the LMS student and family friendly is, first off, it's got to be user friendly. And we have to be able to point our scholars and our parents in the right direction to where they need to go. And so if we have to always answer any questions in a timely manner that they may have. And we can also provide attention to detail things. And we can use Screencastify to record our screen, point to the things, the right things where they need to go, and so forth.
The key to making the LMS student and family friendly is, to me, it sums it up in one word, and that is accessible. Making sure that the family and the scholar can easily access the information that I have for them, whether it be the bell ringer, or whether it be the lesson content, or whether it be the exit slip. Everything is kept in one spot.
The LMS that we are using is Google Classroom, and to keep it as student and parent friendly, I would say, is to keep it as organized as possible and to keep it consistent.
What are some good organizational tips and tools you use within your virtual classroom?
One of the best organizational tips that I use in my virtual classroom is the topic section in Google Classroom. I'm able to create the topic by each week. And so how I do that, let's say it's the week of November 2nd through November 5th. What I do is I create that topic, and any assignments assigned through that week, it's going to fall underneath that topic. And so anytime scholars or parents come to me and say, hey, this is what I'm missing, or my scholar's missing this, I say, okay, we need to go to this topic. We need to go to this week. And it clusters it on within the LMS.
One good organizational tool that I use within my classroom is HyperDocs. HyperDocs is a one-stop place to where the student knows where they need to go. And it also offers structure for the student. The students know each and every day where they need to go to access their material. And I think that structure provides for them that stability, both students in the classroom and out of the classroom. And they're looking for that structure that they used to have before we had the pandemic.
Organization is very important, especially when you have a class stream and it fills up quickly with assignments. So to make it most efficient is to organize by day and date and put those assignments in there, and typically in order of how you want them. And then also on the back end, organizing yourself by making sure all those reports, all those responses are going to come to the same spot, and they're in a format that you can quickly give that feedback. Because virtually you're not beside them giving them an attaboy, so you want to make sure you're quickly giving that feedback to them.
For those of you who have both virtual and face to face learners, what are some things that you have found helpful for managing the teaching, learning, and high levels of engagement for all students?
So teaching hybrid, teaching children in person and virtually has really been a struggle this year. I've always been someone who has based a lot of their work on group work. My kids have always sat in groups, and we've switched up our groups every couple weeks, and so it really was a struggle. One thing that I have found that's beneficial to really make it engaging is to still try to put it in groups when I can. Now, physically, we can't get in groups right now because we have to be spaced out apart, but we can utilize Google Meet to put them in groups and then put them in little breakout rooms. That helps with like the echo in the room. It's not there as long as you're using Google Meet, and making sure they know when to mute when they're not talking. That way there's not, again, that echo. That really helps. Also anything that like Pear Deck, Nearpod is another one. Anything like that is helpful because they can all collaborate on the same thing. In any Google Suite, they can collaborate together on any Google Suite, like Google Docs, Google Slides, any of that. And that's really helpful too because it has that group work feel.
To do that for all scholars, having the high level instruction and engagement, it goes back to day one, getting to know our scholars, what appeals to them, what does not appeal to them. And then secondly, spending only a certain amount of time on certain things. We're not going to spend forever doing one thing. We need to transition from one activity to another in a timely manner, and then also just working bell to bell. And that goes back to if our scholars are busy, then they're not busy doing something they're not supposed to do.
The tools that I found that offers the high level engagement for all scholars is picking out 2 to 3 apps that really work best for you. In those 2 to 3 apps, it could be Flipgrid, it could be Pear Deck or Nearpod, and they offer interactive interaction for the students to where the students can be engaged, and that is key to me, having the students engaged. And some questions that I may ask on those slides to even just get their social and emotional well-being, I may ask, how are you doing today? And in that app, they'll say, I'm doing good. Let's go on with the lesson. Another question I may ask is, how are you feeling emotional today? They said, I may not be doing the best, but I can do the lesson. And the third one would be, I'm not feeling so well, give me a moment. So in that application, I've allowed the students to tell me how they're actually doing, and I'll give them that moment to where they can just take a time, and in that I'm showing them, hey, not only do I care about your learning, I'm also caring about your social and emotional state as well.
If you had to tell a new virtual teacher one tip, trick, or tool, what would it be?
If I had to give one tip to a new virtual teacher, I would say plan backwards. Start with your goal. What do you want them to know? What do you want them to be able to do with that piece of technology or that LMS? And then think about the steps they need to take to get there. Break those steps down and think about it as day one, year one for them. And just go slow. Give yourself and them grace, but also give consistency.
If I had to give a new virtual teacher just one tip, it would be use Google Forms as a bell ringer. It is this one, Google Form will allow you to give the student immediate feedback. It'll allow you to get some feedback from the student to see where they actually are, and also it'll provide a grade for you immediately. Google Form has been very helpful. Use that as a tool.
One tip I would tell an educator is to start off with one resource and have your students become familiar with that resource. Don't introduce a lot of resources at one time and overwhelm. Make sure that students get very familiar with the first resource that you choose and that you feel will be most beneficial in your classroom before introducing another resource.
I would tell a new virtual teacher to be prepared to be a helping hand, but in return, be prepared to lend a helping hand. There's going to be things that you may know that other colleagues may not know, and there's always going to be things that your colleagues know that you may not know, especially in the beginning of your first couple teaching years.
If I had to tell a new virtual teacher a tip or a trick this year, it would be number one, to give yourself some grace. It's going to be a learning curve, especially if you're not comfortable with technology, but it's going to get better as you go on. I remember the very first week, there were a lot of teachers in our building that kept saying, there's no way I can do this, there's just no way. And now they're pros at what they're doing, and we've been here, about 12 weeks, and they're getting a lot better. Something else kind of goes back to my answer earlier, be resourceful. If you're not comfortable, if you're feeling freaked out, go talk to somebody. And even if it's just, hey, I have too much on my plate, it's overflowing, I'm stressed out, I need help, go talk to someone who's next door, or go talk to a teacher buddy. It just helps relieve that stress. Self-care has always been important, but it is so important now to advocate for yourself. You have to take care of yourself, because a teacher who's stressed out is not going to be good for students.